'Twas a day unlike any other. The Galactic Council, a group of powerful beings who govern much of the galaxy, had invited the humans to their space station for a diplomatic meeting. Earth, still recovering from past conflicts, was eager to prove that they were ready for peaceful cooperation with the galaxy's other races. A human diplomat, a man named John Collins, was chosen to represent Earth. His mission was simple: present Earth's case, seek alliances, and hopefully bring peace to their corner of the galaxy. John stepped into the High Council chamber, where representatives from all over the galaxy had gathered. Tall, majestic beings with features that could barely be understood filled the room. The council members had always looked down on humans. To them, Earth was just another insignificant speck in the universe. They had seen humans as primitive, as little more than children in the grand scheme of things. The council rarely thought twice about humans. But today, something had gone terribly wrong. What started as a meeting about trade and peaceful cooperation quickly turned into something darker. The council mocked John and the human race. They laughed at the idea that Earth could ever be considered an equal to the more advanced civilizations. Their disdain was clear, and it was something that John had anticipated. However, what happened next was beyond anything he could have prepared for. During the meeting, an argument broke out between the council and a human representative from a smaller faction. The humans had requested a small concession, an offer that would benefit Earth's future. But the council, bored with the conversation, grew impatient. It was clear that they didn't care about the humans' needs. And then, without warning, one of the council's highest-ranking members, an alien with an unblinking, cold gaze, gave an order that sent a chill through the room. John tried to speak, tried to reason with the council, but his words fell on deaf ears. The Galactic Council leaders stood, and with a motion of their hand, commanded the guards to remove the human child standing beside John. The child, who had been quietly watching the proceedings, was dragged out of the room by the guards. No one spoke up. John's heart pounded as he realized what was happening. He had heard of the council's cruelty in the past, but this was different. This was something far worse. The coldness of the council members, their lack of empathy, struck him like a physical blow. As the child was led away, John's stomach twisted with dread. Then the unimaginable occurred. The council member who had ordered the child's removal raised their hand once again. This time, it was not a mere gesture. The child was executed before anyone could stop it. It was quick, it was brutal, and it was done with a cold, calculated precision. No one in the room could believe what had just transpired. John's eyes went wide in disbelief, his mouth dry. The child's body crumpled to the floor, and an eerie silence took over the room. He felt the weight of the situation bear down on him as the council members exchanged casual glances, as if nothing had just happened. It was as if they hadn't just taken a life in cold blood, as if a human child was just another piece in their endless game. The shock spread quickly through Earth's delegation. A murmur ran through the room. Some were speechless, some were angry, and some even felt fear rising within them. But it was clear that no one could act. The council had made their decision. It was final. John's mind raced. He knew that there was no coming back from this. The humans would not forget this insult. Earth would not allow such an act to go unanswered. The diplomat's instincts kicked in, and he knew in his gut that this was the moment everything would change. John's eyes locked with the council leaders. In that brief moment, something passed between them. A silent understanding. The council had made a mistake, one that would cost them dearly. It was no longer about diplomacy. No more negotiations. No more peace. This would be war. The council had crossed a line. The death of the innocent child wasn't just a loss to the humans. It was a catalyst. Earth would respond with vengeance, and it would not be quiet. A storm was coming. John had only one thought as he turned to leave the room. Earth will make them regret this. As the doors to the council chamber closed behind him, John knew that the human race would rise. The time for diplomacy was over. The galaxy would soon witness something it had never seen before, a force that had been underestimated for far too long. The pain of loss would be their strength, and the Galactic Council would soon realize what happens when they dare to harm humanity. The first step had been taken. The humans had spoken, and now the universe would listen. The moment John left the Galactic Council chamber, he felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the overwhelming surge of anger and grief. He had witnessed the death of an innocent child, but worse, he had seen the callousness of the Council, an act of violence carried out without hesitation, without remorse. He knew, without a doubt, that the peaceful era between Earth and the galaxy had come to an end. The diplomat's message was simple. Earth would not stand idly by. It would retaliate. And the consequences for the Council would be devastating. Inside the security room, John's mind raced. He quickly contacted the highest levels of Earth's military leadership. In a voice tinged with urgency, he relayed the terrible news. The Council killed a human child. They are not going to stop at this. Earth must prepare for war. There will be no more negotiations. Back on Earth, the leaders were already mobilizing. They had always known that the galaxy's power brokers viewed humanity as weak, as an afterthought. But they had underestimated the human spirit. It was a mistake that would haunt them for the rest of their existence. John's message was heard across the globe, echoing in every government chamber, every military command center. The response was immediate and unified. Earth would not bend. They would not be silenced. They would fight. The people of Earth were angry, and they were ready to face the full might of the galaxy to avenge the child's death. The United Earth forces were activated, and the rapid response teams were called into action. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists began to work around the clock. They knew what they had to do. Earth had a secret, a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It had been hidden for centuries, buried deep beneath the surface of Earth, its existence known only to a select few. It was the ancient fleet, the last remaining traces of humanity's once great naval power. These ships had been dormant for generations, their designs long forgotten by Earth's current generation. But they were not forgotten by the military leaders. They knew that in these ships lay the key to humanity's survival. They had been built to withstand the most formidable of enemies. And now, they would be humanity's answer to the Galactic Council. The decision was made. Earth would unleash its ancient fleet. The fleets had been preserved in secret, waiting for this day, the day when humanity would face its greatest challenge. They would no longer be a peaceful race, at the mercy of galactic powers. No, now, Earth would show its true strength. John, exhausted but resolute, stood at the helm of Earth's military command, overseeing the preparations. He watched as the ships, hidden for centuries beneath the Earth's surface, were brought to life once more. The roar of engines, the blare of alarms, and the flicker of warning lights filled the air. It was a scene unlike any other. The old fleet was awakening, and humanity was preparing for war. The news spread quickly. Around the world, people gathered in front of their screens, waiting for the announcement. Earth had always been a peaceful planet, one that had rarely engaged in conflict. But the message was clear now. They would not be cowed. The people were ready to fight, to defend their own, and they would do so with everything they had. John knew that this was just the beginning. The fleet was powerful, but it would not be enough on its own. Earth would need every ounce of its strength, every bit of its ingenuity, to take on the Galactic Council. The fight ahead would be brutal, and the stakes had never been higher. As the final preparations were made, John watched the first of the ancient ships break through the atmosphere and rise into the stars. The world held its breath. They were no longer just citizens of Earth. They were soldiers, and Earth was no longer a peaceful planet. It was a force to be reckoned with. The ancient fleet had been reawakened. The Galactic Council had made a grave mistake, and soon they would feel the full wrath of Earth. And so, The war began. As the first ship of the ancient fleet broke through Earth's atmosphere, the entire planet watched in silence. For the citizens of Earth, it was a moment of awe and disbelief. These ships, relics from a long-forgotten era, were not only massive in size, but also incredible in design, each one a marvel of human engineering. They had been hidden deep beneath the surface for centuries, and now they were Earth's only hope. The ancient fleet had been designed long before Earth had known of the Galactic Council's existence. They were built to face the unknown, to defend humanity against any external threat. And now they were rising from the ashes of Earth's past to defend the planet against the most powerful force in the galaxy. John stood in the military command center, watching the ships launch, his heart pounding in his chest. The fleet was not just a military force, it was a symbol of humanity's resilience, of the strength that lay dormant within the human race, waiting to be awakened. The world, once in despair, was now filled with a renewed sense of hope. The tide had begun to turn. But John knew better than to think that this would be an easy fight. The Galactic Council was not going to give up without a fight. They would retaliate. And Earth, despite its strength, was still vastly outmatched in terms of raw power. The Council had fleets of their own, each one more advanced and devastating than anything Earth had ever faced. Earth's response had to be swift and strategic. With a deep breath, John turned to his officers. We cannot afford to wait. The longer we hesitate, the more time the Council has to prepare. The fleet needs to engage as soon as possible. Launch all ships, and let's show them what Earth is capable of. The order was given, and Earth's ancient fleet, once silent and dormant, began to move into action. The ships, powered by advanced technologies that had been lost to time, cut through the stars like a swarm of ancient gods returning to wage war. Their engines hummed with raw power, their weapon systems coming online for the first time in centuries. These were no ordinary ships. They were Earth's last line of defense, and they were ready. In the depths of space, the Galactic Council's fleets waited. They had received reports of Earth's unusual movements, but no one took them seriously. They had dismissed Earth as a weak, primitive world. How could a single planet challenge the might of the Council? But as the ancient ships of Earth moved into position, the first wave of humanity's counterattack began. A communications officer on the flagship quickly sent out a message to the nearest Galactic Council fleet. This is Earth. The child you killed was the last mistake you will ever make. We are coming, and we will not stop until justice is done. The message was met with silence. It was then that the Council's commanders realized their grave error. They had underestimated Earth. They had believed that their advanced fleets, their powerful technology, and their endless resources would guarantee victory. But they had never considered the will of humanity. They had never considered the unyielding determination of a species backed into a corner. And now, they would pay the price. In the darkness of space, the battle began. Earth's ships moved like a storm through the stars, their weapons firing with precision and deadly accuracy. Each shot fired was a message to the Council. Humanity was no longer weak. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The Galactic Council's fleet began to retaliate, launching their own attack in response. Their ships, though more advanced, were caught off guard by the sheer ferocity of Earth's counterattack. The Council's forces, though vast, began to falter as the ancient fleet proved more than capable of holding its ground. John watched the battle unfold from the command center, his mind focused on the task at hand. There was no turning back now. Earth had chosen its path, and there was no room for failure. Every decision, every action would determine the fate of humanity. But as he looked at the live feeds of the battle, he felt a surge of pride. Earth was not going down without a fight. Earth was not going to let the Council win. On the battlefield, Earth's ancient ships continued to engage the Council's forces. The battle raged on, the stars above lighting up with the fury of war. And as the ancient fleet continued to fight with everything it had, Earth's message to the galaxy was clear. Humanity had awoken, and it was ready to stand its ground. The question now was not if Earth could win, but how much the Galactic Council would lose before they realized that humanity would not be crushed. The battle had escalated quickly. What began as a small skirmish had turned into an all-out war. Earth's ancient fleet had caught the Galactic Council by surprise, but the Council was not one to back down easily. The initial shock was over. Now, they were regrouping, preparing for a counterattack of their own. In the command center aboard the flagship of Earth's fleet, John stood with his officers, watching the unfolding conflict on a massive holographic display. The Galactic Council's ships were formidable, each one a testament to the Council's advanced technology and military prowess. They had shields capable of withstanding heavy fire, and weapons that could obliterate entire fleets in seconds. But John wasn't concerned with that. He knew humanity had an advantage: the will to fight. "Don't get complacent," John said, his voice firm but calm. "They may be more advanced, but we've got something they don't. We have heart. We have the power of a united Earth behind us." His officers nodded, their eyes filled with determination. The initial surprise had worn off, but now was the time to show the Council that Earth would not be intimidated. John's mind raced through battle plans. It was clear they couldn't afford to just defend. They needed to take the fight to the Galactic Council. Meanwhile, in the vastness of space, the Galactic Council's fleet was mobilizing for their next strike. The Council's leaders, who had dismissed Earth as insignificant, now watched as their forces struggled to contain the unexpected might of humanity's ancient fleet. The command room aboard the Council's flagship was tense, with officers scrambling to coordinate the next phase of the operation. One officer, a tall figure with sharp features and a reputation for ruthless tactics, stood before the Council's high command. "We've underestimated them," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "Earth's fleet is more resilient than we anticipated. We need to crush them now before they gain more ground." The leader of the Galactic Council, a cold and calculating being, nodded. "Deploy the Zinthar fleet," he ordered. The Zinthar were one of the Council's most powerful assets, a race of merciless warriors known for their ability to annihilate entire civilizations without mercy. The Zinthar ships, sleek and deadly, began their approach. The Council hoped that the overwhelming force of the Zinthar would end the conflict once and for all. Their ships were equipped with weapons that could melt through the toughest shields, and their speed and maneuverability were unmatched. It was the kind of power that made even the most seasoned commanders shudder. Back on Earth, John watched as the new wave of ships appeared on the radar. The Zinthar fleet was coming, and Earth was vastly outmatched. They had already been fighting for hours, and although Earth's fleet was putting up a strong resistance, their resources were finite. The Zinthar were about to put that to the test. John's fingers tightened on the control panel. The situation was dire. Earth's fleet had been dealing with the initial wave of Council ships, but now they faced a much greater threat. It wasn't just the Zinthar ships that were dangerous. It was the psychological warfare they brought with them. The Council wanted to break humanity's spirit, to make them feel small and insignificant. But John wasn't about to let that happen. He had seen the strength of his people firsthand. The engineers, the soldiers, the pilots, they were all willing to give everything for Earth. And now it was his turn to lead them into the fight. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," John barked. "We're not just going to survive this. We're going to win." Earth's fleet shifted tactics. Rather than trying to match the Zinthar's power head-on, they used their speed and agility to outmaneuver them, hitting from unexpected angles and taking advantage of every weakness they could find. The Zinthar were fast, but Earth's ships had an advantage. They knew the terrain, and they had the element of surprise on their side. The first few clashes were brutal. The Zinthar ships, with their advanced weaponry, unleashed devastating blasts that tore through Earth's defenses. But the humans held their ground, firing back with everything they had. Every shot counted, and every ship fought with the determination of a species that knew it had no other choice but to survive. As the battle raged on, John couldn't help but notice the resilience of his fleet. The human spirit, something the Galactic Council had never truly understood, was something no technology could replicate. The Council had been arrogant, assuming that power alone would win the day. But as Earth's ships continued to fight back, the Council began to realize that they were facing something far more dangerous than they had expected, a species that would never give up. Back aboard the Synthar command ship, the officer in charge of the fleet began to grow concerned. "Why haven't we destroyed them yet?" he demanded. "We're outnumbering them, and our weapons are superior." The answer was simple. Humanity wasn't fighting for glory or power. They were fighting for survival, and that made them unpredictable, dangerous, and relentless. As John watched the battle unfold, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The fate of Earth was in his hands, and every decision he made could change the course of the war. The Galactic Council may have believed they could win, but they had underestimated humanity's resolve. The fight wasn't over yet, and Earth was far from finished. As the battle raged on, Earth's fleet faced a stark reality. The Synthar fleet's firepower was overwhelming, and their relentless attacks were taking a toll. Ships were being torn apart, debris scattered across space, and the survivors pushed to their limits. The human fleet, though resilient, was running low on ammunition, fuel, and morale. Yet, in the midst of this dire situation, the unthinkable happened. John stood at the helm of the flagship, his eyes fixed on the holographic map. Every sector of space was marked with the bright red of battle, ships locked in combat, some fighting back fiercely, others barely holding on. His officers worked tirelessly, coordinating the fleet's movements, but it was becoming clear the Synthar fleet was too powerful. Earth's advanced fleet, though impressive, was now showing cracks under the immense pressure. "We can't keep this up much longer," one of John's officers said, his voice strained. "The Synthar's firepower is tearing us apart. If we don't come up with something new, we'll be overrun." John didn't respond immediately. His mind was spinning with possibilities. The Galactic Council had thought they could crush humanity easily, but they had made one critical mistake. They underestimated the ingenuity of Earth. Humanity's strength wasn't just in their ships or weapons. It was in their ability to think outside the box, to use their creativity to overcome insurmountable odds. Then it hit him. "Prepare the ancient fleet," John ordered. His voice was steady, but his mind raced. The ancient fleet, the fleet that had been hidden away for centuries, was Earth's last hope. These ships were unlike anything in the Council's arsenal. They weren't just technologically advanced. They were ancient war machines, built long before humanity had even begun to explore the stars. The fleet had been kept in reserve, its existence a closely guarded secret. Until now. "Sir?" one of his officers asked, disbelief creeping into his voice. "The ancient fleet." "Are you sure? We don't have time to." "We don't have a choice," John interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "If we don't act now, we lose Earth. Prepare them for launch. Immediately." The order was given, and the fleet began to move. Earth's commanders had learned well from the Council's mistakes. They knew that the Synthar fleet relied on brute force and overwhelming numbers. But the ancient fleet had something that no amount of firepower could defeat: unpredictability. Across space, Earth's secret fleet began to awaken. These ships, dormant for so long, came to life with a low hum of power. Their designs were unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever seen. Massive, ancient, and armed with weapons of unimaginable power. Each ship was a relic of humanity's forgotten past, built by the first civilizations to touch the stars. The weapons on these ships were not just guns or lasers. They were capable of ripping apart the very fabric of space, warping time itself. As the ancient fleet emerged from their hidden stations, John watched in awe. These ships weren't just tools of war. They were a symbol of humanity's will to survive. Each one represented the strength of a species that had faced extinction countless times and had always come out victorious. Now, they would face their greatest challenge yet. The Zinthar fleet, confident in their superiority, did not see the ancient fleet coming. They were too focused on their current advantage, too sure that victory was inevitable. When the first wave of Earth's ancient warships emerged from the depths of space, it caught the Zinthar by surprise. The Zinthar ships turned, their commanders scrambling to react. But it was too late. Without warning, the ancient fleet unleashed its first attack. The weapons on the ancient ships hummed to life, firing blasts that disintegrated the incoming Zinthar ships. The force of the attacks was unlike anything the Zinthar had ever encountered. The explosions were massive, sending shockwaves through space. Zinthar ships vanished into nothingness, their advanced shields unable to withstand the sheer power of the ancient weaponry. The tide of the battle shifted instantly. John's eyes narrowed as he watched the destruction unfold. The Zinthar were no longer in control of the battlefield. The ancient ships moved with precision, their weapons cutting through the Zinthar fleet like a hot knife through butter. Earth's fleet had found their second wind. The Zinthar, who had once been so confident, were now scrambling to regroup. As the battle raged on, the Zinthar commanders issued new orders, trying desperately to organize a counteroffensive, but they were no match for the unpredictability of the ancient fleet. These ships weren't just advanced, they were unlike anything the Zinthar had ever encountered. Their weapons tore through the Zinthar's advanced defenses, and their tactics were unconventional, leaving the Zinthar with no room to maneuver. On the command deck of Earth's flagship, John allowed himself a moment of relief. The ancient fleet was making all the difference. Earth had been written off, underestimated, and yet here they were, fighting back with everything they had. This was no longer just a battle for survival. It was a battle for Earth's future. "We did it," one of John's officers whispered, awe in his voice. "We're winning." But John knew better than to get too comfortable. The Galactic Council wouldn't give up so easily. This was only the beginning. As the Zinthar scrambled to regroup, John felt a renewed sense of purpose. Earth had just delivered a crushing blow to the Council's pride, but the war was far from over. He wasn't sure how much longer the ancient fleet could hold out, but he knew one thing: Earth wasn't going down without a fight. The Galactic Council had made the mistake of underestimating humanity, and now they would pay the price. Despite the stunning success of the ancient fleet, the Galactic Council was not a force easily deterred. Their pride had been wounded, and their superiority shattered. Now, they were furious, more determined than ever to crush humanity. They couldn't afford to let this uprising go unpunished, especially after the unexpected power that Earth had unleashed. In the vast corridors of the Galactic Council's flagship, the High Command convened. Their faces, previously confident, now showed signs of deep concern. The destruction of the Zinthar fleet was not just a setback, it was a humiliation. The leaders of the Council had underestimated Earth, and now the consequences were clear. "We cannot allow this to continue," said High Commander Thaurix, his voice cold and filled with fury. "These humans think they can challenge the might of the Galactic Council. They have awakened forces they do not understand. But that doesn't matter. We will wipe them out, once and for all." The room fell silent as the commanders exchanged uneasy glances. Despite their initial confidence, they knew that Earth had something unique, an unpredictability that made them impossible to calculate. The ancient fleet was unlike anything they had faced, and no matter how much firepower the Council had, they weren't sure if it would be enough to stop the relentless power of humanity's unexpected weapon. "We need to regroup," said Viril, one of the Zinthar commanders who had narrowly survived the initial assault. His voice was strained, and his eyes betrayed the fear that had begun to take root. "The ancient fleet is unlike anything we've ever seen. We've never encountered technology so advanced, so unpredictable. We need to focus everything on eliminating their advantage before they can strike again." Thaurix nodded. "Yes, but we cannot make the same mistake again. We will be ready. We will strike fast, strike hard, and ensure that Earth knows its place in the galaxy. Across the battlefield, the tide of war had shifted in Earth's favor, but the fight was far from over. The ancient fleet had thrown the Council's plans into disarray, but they were now regrouping, preparing for a counterattack of their own. Earth's forces, though powerful, were stretched thin, and the brutal reality of war was beginning to weigh heavily on John and his crew. As the commanders of the ancient fleet celebrated their victory, they knew the battle was far from won. The Synthar fleet was not the only threat Earth faced. The Galactic Council had the resources to rebuild, to strike again with a force even more powerful than before. On Earth's flagship, John stood alone on the observation deck, staring out into the void of space. The first light of dawn was just beginning to shine through the stars, a reminder of how much was at stake. He had always known that humanity's survival would come at a cost. But seeing the destruction, hearing the stories of lives lost, it felt more real now than ever before. "Sir," a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Lieutenant Marks, one of his most trusted officers. "We've received a transmission from the Council. They're preparing for another assault." John turned to face her, his expression hardening. "How much time do we have?" "Less than 24 hours, she replied, her voice tinged with concern. "They're pulling together a massive fleet. If we don't act quickly, we'll be overwhelmed." John knew what had to be done. Earth couldn't afford to wait for the Council to attack again. They needed to strike first, using the very thing that had caught the Galactic Council off guard: their unpredictability. The ancient fleet was still strong, but it could only hold for so long against a sustained attack. "We need to prepare the fleet," John said firmly, his voice steady. "The ancient fleet isn't enough. We need to show the Council that humanity will never bow to anyone, no matter how powerful they are. Get me the latest intelligence on their fleet movements. We're going to hit them before they hit us." As the officers sprang into action, John felt a surge of determination. The war was about to take a dark turn, and there would be no turning back. But he had no choice. The future of Earth and its people hung in the balance, and he was not about to let the Galactic Council destroy everything humanity had fought for. The stage was set for a final showdown. Humanity had already delivered a devastating blow to the Synthar fleet. Now the Galactic Council was preparing to unleash its full might against Earth. The only question that remained was, would humanity be ready for the fight of their lives? The calm before the storm was palpable. On Earth, the fleet had been mobilized. The crews were at the ready, every soldier, pilot, and officer knowing that this moment could determine the fate of their planet. John stood once again on the bridge of the flagship, looking at the vast emptiness of space. This time, he wasn't just watching the stars. He was watching the future of humanity, prepared to do whatever it took to keep Earth safe from the wrath of the Galactic Council. The decision had been made. They would strike first, and they would strike hard. Earth's forces, bolstered by the strength of the ancient fleet, had been restructured into a single unified force, prepared to face the Council's might. The moment of reckoning had arrived. "We have the coordinates, sir," Lieutenant Marks reported, her voice tight with determination. "The Galactic Council's fleet is just beyond the outer edge of the system. We have a window of about 5 minutes before they realize we've moved into position." John nodded grimly. "I want every ship in position, now. No mistakes. If we don't succeed in these first few minutes, we won't get another chance." The ship hummed with energy as the fleet moved into place. The ancient fleet, alongside Earth's best ships, formed a formidable armada. This was humanity's final stand. They had already proven their mettle by surviving the initial attack, by unleashing the ancient fleet. Now they had to do more than survive. They had to win. Out in the void of space, the Galactic Council's ships loomed like shadows, each vessel a testament to their power. They were unaware of the trap Earth had set for them, unaware that the fight was already on their doorstep. But Earth had always been underestimated. And this time, it was going to cost the Galactic Council everything. The battle began suddenly. A burst of energy tore through the silence of space as the first salvo of missiles erupted from Earth's flagship. The Galactic Council's fleet was still in the process of aligning their weapons when Earth's forces struck. It was chaos, pure chaos, as explosions rippled through the Council's lines. Their ships, advanced as they were, couldn't react fast enough to the fury unleashed by Earth's fleet. "Sir, they're retaliating," Lieutenant Marks reported. "The Council's ships are firing back." But it was too late. The attack had been so swift, so violent, that the Council's fleet was already in disarray. Earth's forces, with their unpredictability, their willingness to sacrifice everything, struck with a ferocity that the Council had never expected. The power of the ancient fleet had been awakened again, and it was cutting through the Galactic Council's ships like a blade through paper. "Keep the pressure on them," John commanded. "No mercy. We take down every ship they have. Earth won't be conquered." The tide of battle turned in Earth's favor, but the Galactic Council was not finished yet. Their commanders, despite the chaos, rallied their remaining forces. Falrix, the High Commander, had finally realized the depth of his mistake. But it was too late. Earth had already proven its strength. The Galactic Council's ships began to fall, one after another, as Earth's fleets continued their assault. But then, the unimaginable happened. A massive, unexpected blast from the Galactic Council's largest ship hit Earth's flagship directly. The ship shook violently, and alarms blared as the crew scrambled to stabilize the vessel. "Damage report," John shouted, his voice filled with urgency. "Shields down to 15%. Lieutenant Marks called out. "Engines are stable, but we've lost communication with the Second Fleet." John gritted his teeth. "We can't back down now. All ships, hold your ground. We are not losing this fight." Despite the damage, Earth's forces pressed on. The ancient fleet, although suffering, continued to take down Council ships, while Earth's flagship endured, battling back with everything it had. The Galactic Council had underestimated Earth once, and now they were paying the price. For all their might, they were being torn apart by the relentless human spirit. And then, in the final moments of the battle, the Galactic Council's flagship, its largest, most powerful ship, was destroyed in a brilliant explosion. The surviving Council forces, now leaderless and broken, began to retreat, unable to withstand the relentless assault of Earth's forces. It was over. John stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching as the last of the Galactic Council's fleet vanished into the dark reaches of space. The battle had been won, but the cost had been high. Earth had fought valiantly, and humanity had proven, without a doubt, that it would never bow to the will of anyone who sought to destroy it. The Galactic Council had been humiliated, their strength shattered, and humanity stood victorious. But John knew that this war had only been one battle. There would be more challenges ahead, more enemies to face. But for now, Earth had won. And as he looked out into the stars, he knew that humanity's future was theirs to shape. "Prepare for the next phase," John said quietly. "We've won this battle, but the war is far from over." As the fleet drifted through the aftermath, the sound of victory echoed in the hearts of every human across the galaxy. Earth had faced the impossible and come out victorious. But the true power of humanity, John knew, was in its ability to rise up against the odds and to never give up.